Hello, my name is Michael Walleen, and my creation for this project is the OxyReel, which is a retractable, kink-free reel for oxygen tubing. This is just kind of a generated image of what the product could look like. This shows it attached to the tank. This shows kind of what it would look like if it was attached to a person. It's got the hosing or the tubing that goes to the housing of the mechanism, and it's got the mask attached to the patient. Kind of a little breakdown. The big thing is not to let it kink. So here's kind of an idea of what the anti-kink roller would look like. These are just kind of prototype images, but this is kind of a concept of what we would like to create. So, kind of a little backstory. My wife was a nurse at the VA for 15 years. She worked with a lot of the elderly, and an issue she always said was the oxygen tubing would always get lengthed out to several feet, 10, 20, 30 feet at some points, and it would just be on the floor, oftentimes a trip hazard, or it would kink or just get tangled, just be a nuisance in general. And doing my customer interviews, that was one of the main things they would all say is just the links on the floor. Some of them said they would have to connect like three or four of them together just to get so somebody could be mobile and get across the room 30, 40 feet. So hopefully with this retractable design, it would eliminate it being on the floor and being a trip hazard. So that was the basic inspiration behind this project. Here are some of the features with the project and some of the benefits tied to them. So the retractable tubing. So there would be a spring mechanism that would retract the tubing via the button. This would eliminate clutter, reduce fall risks by keeping tubes off the ground. The anti-kink technology, which is one of the most crucial of this device, but it's got built-in roller guides that would guide the tubing smoothly. This would ensure the uninterrupted oxygen flow, preventing alarms or discomfort, or potentially even serious issues aside from that. It would be a wearable design, so it would have a clip-on housing for the chest or waist attachment, whichever they would prefer. This would improve the patient mobility in home or hospital settings without dragging tubes. The medical grade materials, it would have BPA-free plastic, kink-resistant PVC tubing, I think which is the standard industry maybe, but I'm not an expert, so I do not know that for sure. That it would be safe, durable, and easy to clean, compatible with standard oxygen systems. It would be battery-free operation. It was purely mechanical, just a spring inside, a couple roller guides, so hopefully it would be inexpensive to create as well. This would be reliable, no charging needed, cost effective for the long-term use. And that's another idea behind it. It's got to be inexpensive. So that was kind of the hope behind it being just a purely simple mechanical device. We would have to have length options, I would think, a variety of different lengths available. And this is customizable for different home sizes or activity levels. We were thinking 10, 20, 30, have different varieties, just so that way if they need to be more mobile, more further away from their oxygen, they can just clip on the longer setting, tubing setting. So the market for this product, there wasn't really anything created as such. And I talked to somebody from Lincare here in Fargo, and he said there's a lot of clients and patients that try to create their own, some successful, some not. But there is no such invention that he knows of that exists. I found a couple, something on the internet. This was pretty expensive on the right. It's got a big reel and it attaches to the oxygen device, but I would assume it's durable and effective, but it's just very expensive, a couple $100, if not more. And then they have the recoil type style, which could work. Again, the length is probably not across the room, maybe 5, 10 feet at the most. But this is the main kind of ideas that the nurses do in the hospital settings. They have these little quick connects, and many times in the ICUs, they just connect 3 to 4 different links together. And they say that's kind of a pain. And again, it's on the floor and trip hazard gets tangled. Some people use this little elastic clip kind of keep them together. So there are some cheap, ineffective ways that are easy to use and get the product kind of what I am showing with this reel. So that they have improvised, just nothing has been created in a real world industry. So during my customer visit summary, these are kind of the main highlights of it. So they need it to be easy to exchange between the nasal cannula and full mask because some clients use either or both. So it has to be an easy little clip that they would do, make it interchangeable. The different length reels, again, the 10, 20, 30 foot, maybe even longer for different situations. This is kind of a must have they were talking about as you don't want somebody to not have enough length. You want somebody to be able to reach the areas of their house that they want to with ease. The button was another main must-have item that many people said. It's got to be, especially for the elderly, it's got to be easy to press. And you don't want it to, a lot of the other ones were saying is you want it to retract at like couple feet, 2 feet increments and then stop. So they have to push the button. You don't want them to hold that button and it just snaps all 30 feet back, potentially, maybe making them fall over or who knows what it could do, pull off the machine. So there's a lot of things that quick recoil could do to a patient. So that was another, probably number one or two on the list besides the button. And the lengths and the ease of use, this would be one that would be on the top of the list to have is a must have is that retractor button is easy to use and press. So I think touch on this a little bit, but when the recoil button is pressed, the device only retracts at certain lengths until the button is pushed again to reduce that rapid tug. And that was definitely must have amongst a lot of my clients. My top three assumptions. So I created this kind of the crucial and evident is there's a large population that use oxygen tubing, whether it's in home, in hospital, or in the nursing home. A couple of my customers, they said this would even be a great item in the NICU. The babies don't have far to go, but the cords and the oxygen tubing are often in the way and can be a nuisance. So she said even something simple, it doesn't have to be focused towards the elderly. It could be even used for babies. The evident but not crucial is the hospital staff don't want to connect the multiple links. They said that's kind of a nuisance. It is evident that this is being done, but it's not they can handle it. It's not a crucial device that has to be. One of the customers, a couple of them were honest and yeah, I needed this, but they said, it's kind of impractical. And what's the cost behind it? Is it going to be expensive to create? Because if we're selling something like this, it can't be hundreds of dollars. It's got to be 10, 20, $30. So it's got to be cheap to make, but it's got to be durable. And how are we going to implement the product? Do we need to do a lot of research, associate the costs of falls in the elderly versus how much is it going to take to make and how much are we going to sell of the product? So there are pros and cons, and that was very helpful. But one of those crucial items with not much evidence, I guess, but patients want to move around without tripping. I would think there's evidence and I would think it's crucial, but I just kind of placed it there in hopes that we see a little bit more into the light of this device. Here is my lean canvas startup. So the problem that I was looking at is the excess oxygen tubing on the floor, the potential for kinking or tangling with it laying on the floor, and the trip hazard and potential injury of the oxygen tubing on the floor. The solution is the retractable reel that extends and retracts as the patient moves around the room, the oxy reel. The unique value proposition. So no such invention yet exists to my knowledge, and that's what I was told by somebody at Lincare that deals with technology like this all the time. So some patients attempt to create their own, not always a success. This can potentially save many injuries, especially in the elderly. My unfair advantage is a simple kink-free design, but it's yet fully functional. It clips directly on the customer for ease of use and access. So the main customers I would look at are mostly for the elderly in their home or nursing home, mostly because of the trip hazards associated. A lot of times when the elderly fall, they break a hip, break something, and their life kind of goes downhill from there. So falls are very crucial for elderly. We try to prevent them as much as we can, and if we can create a product like this that retracts the tubing, gets it off the floor, they don't have to worry about those trips. I think that's beneficial for all of us. This device could be used in the operating rooms as well, NICU departments. It could be versatile anywhere. Even it doesn't have to be for the oxygen tubing. It could be used for other tubing in the hospital settings. But this is what I'm focusing it mainly on is for the oxygen. But really, the customer could be any oxygen dependent customer that wants to avoid the trips, hazards, or kinks. So this is my project. I'm hoping to see how it goes. Everyone I've talked to so far said it's a great idea. Some of the nurses said they've thought of something like this and tried to improvise and create, but none of them have really fully created anything, reached out. So that's my goal. I'm to the point where I think I want to get on board and see if there's any investors out there or something that want to make this a device and see if it can be created and useful at a fairly inexpensive cost, and hopefully we can sell it as inexpensive for the elderly so they can afford it. But it's got to be durable and it's got to be practical. And some more research might be necessary to discover this, but so far, from what I've heard, it would be a good device, and I'm hoping to go down that path as I get there. So, thank you.